Hello and welcome everyone, we Weeb online, and today I'm gonna start a new movie. What if Naruto went back to his Genin body in a different past? Part 1. If you enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
Naruto yelled and jumped up on his feet. He closed his eyes. He wasn't the middle of a forest about to be hit by an enemy attack. He was in a field in the middle, a field that was almost like. A familiar voice screamed, "Naruto," like nails on a chalkboard. Naruto started to say Sakura, but his female teammate appeared in front of him and punched him in the face. Naruto blinked in shock as he realized he was lying on his back. On the one hand, he didn't understand why she had attacked him instead of the missing nin they were looking for. On the other hand, he was glad to be alive after seeing her destroy a battlefield full of Jubai clones. On the other hand, he got out of bed and looked at his angry teammate. "Are you 12 again?" He heard his own voice. "Am I 12 again?" Before he knew what was going on, she was on top of him and trying to hit him in the face with her tiny fists, which were much stronger than he remembered. When Naruto saw the younger, angrier version of his teammate, he got scared and kicked him off. "What the hell, Sakura?" Sakura gave him a look like she wanted to rip off his head. "Dope, she's just mad that you were yelling." Naruto got pissed and looked at Sasuke. But he stopped himself. Sasuke was resting on a branch of a tree. The shadow of the tree he was sitting under made it impossible to see him. As he got closer, the world seemed to lose its color, making him look like a black and white photo. But his eyes were what really shocked Naruto. Even though his teammate was still 12 years old, he looked even crazier than he did at the Gakage summit. Sakura wailed like an animal that was about to die and ran to the trees. Sasuke won. Naruto blinked as she tried in vain to jump to the branch where he was standing. Even though she would have definitely been able to make that jump at that age, she was only getting a few inches off the ground. Sasuke looked at her as if she were a piece of trash. The bottom of Sakura's dress made a splashing sound, and liquid seemed to shoot out of it. Naruto asked Kurama, "Is this a jinjutsu?" He didn't want to think about what he was seeing. "No," a woman's voice said in his ear in a seductive way. "Why don't you come in so I can check on you?" It could have been the voice. It could have been the invite. Naruto decided that he would never do that again. Maybe it was the way the voice said check, like one of Jiraiya's more forward female friends, but he was sure of it. He said Kai, and tried to break the jinjutsu himself. There was nothing. "What was that jutsu, dope?" Sasuke asked urgently. Naruto blinked and turned around to look at Sasuke. "What?" It was the technique for getting rid of jinjutsu. Before he sat back, Sasuke looked at him and blinked, as if he thought Naruto was lying. "All right, but it can't be something I can't do." Naruto shook his head and asked, "What are you?" He had to get back on the right path. If this was jinjutsu, he was falling for it. "What about the missing nin? How did you get here? Why are you so young?" "Shut up, Baka," Sakura yelled like a roaring-tailed beast as she jumped at him as if she wanted to rip his head off. Naruto jumped out of the way when she punched the ground he was standing on, breaking it. He asked, "What the hell?" So she couldn't jump to get to Sasuke. But when it came to fighting him, she was just as strong as she had been after training with Tsunade. Sakura started to scream, and Naruto thought that she was getting louder. "I like Sasuke, you idiot. Stop breathing the same air as him, you worthless wretch." Naruto blinked, and it did hurt a little bit. He didn't agree. He shook his head. "It's just a jinjutsu." He ran away from the banshee quickly by pretending to be a teammate and climbing a tree. Sakura gave him an angry look before going back to worshipping the ground under Sasuke. "Okay," Naruto said. "I was on a mission with the other villages to find missing ninjas. We found one, and I jumped in front of Kiritsuchi before a blast hit her, and I don't know what happened after that." He turned around and looked back at Sasuke and Sakura. There were now a dozen girls jumping with Sakura on the wet ground. Naruto didn't want to think about what had happened. "Now we're 12, and Sakura's doing that," he said, looking up at the sky in anger. "What's going on?" he yelled. "Naruto." A wall of sound hit him hard and threw him out of the tree. Naruto looked up. Sakura and the girls, who he thought were all civilians, were armed with a number of weapons that looked very dangerous and were jumping at him with a level of skill he had only seen in Jonin. He yelled out in fear. Divided by. Sasuke went over his long list of ways to say sorry for the 50th time. Since he couldn't open his eyes, he didn't have much to do in his cell other than think about how he was going to make up for his mistakes. At least if Naruto kept his promise to get him out of prison. Sure, Sasuke was pretty sure he could get away if he tried hard enough, but even if he didn't do anything, that would make things harder for Team 7. The Raikage would not be happy at all. Sasuke sighed and wondered if Sakura would think he was trying to hit on her if he gave her roses. After everything he's done, she'd probably be mad at him. Maybe tulips. He heard the door to his cell open all of a sudden. Sasuke, Sakura cried. Sakura, Sasuke, this is awful. Naruto. Sasuke strained his suppressed chakra as he tore through his straitjacket. He then used the Predapath to absorb the chakra and the seal over his eyes before ripping it off and looking at his teammate. Then he blinked and asked, "What's wrong?" Ibiki, Kakashi, and Tsunade were also in his cell, but they didn't seem to care. Tsunade asked, "Really? One girl crying and you start running away?" Kakashi groaned as he pressed his nose bridge. "Well, I thought you were only in our hands because you let us." Sasuke moved away from them and then turned to look at Sakura. "What's the big deal?" Divided by. Sasuke looked down at his best friend, who was sleeping, and then looked up at the crowd of ninja in front of him. They were all crammed into a hospital room that was bigger than most. He tried very hard not to look at the Raikage and asked, "What happened and why is everyone here?" Tsunade began to explain. "We were having a meeting after the war when the team we had put together to find all missing nin with ties to the Akatsuki came back. Naruto had jumped in front of an attack that was meant for Kuretsuchi. The Kunoichi who was being asked about put up her hand. ... And as far as we can tell, he's stuck in Genjutsu. Couldn't Kurama get him out of there?" A few of the ninja looked at him and blinked. "The Kyuubi," he elaborated. "That's the scary part. He hasn't. We tried to do something about it, but we were locked out." Sasuke blinked. "You want me to try to get them out? Is there anyone on Earth who uses Genjutsu better than you?" Before he looked back up, Sasuke looked back at his friend's face as he slept. "What are you all doing here?" Killer Bee rapped. "Yo, man. We're worried, so help Naruto as much as you can." The Raikage went on, and we don't trust you." Sasuke sighed and then looked at the fool who was sleeping. He knew from personal experience how bad a long-lasting Genjutsu attack could be, and Naruto didn't deserve that. He said, "Okay, here I go," and turned on his Rinnegan. Divided by. On a bed, Sasuke was sleeping. Even without opening his eyes, he could tell that much. Still, something didn't feel right. He felt like he was being weighed down. He opened his eyes slowly. He looked up, and then he yelled. Divided by. As he walked through Konoha, Sasuke rubbed his eyes. Old Konoha, before pain tore it down. It made me think of the past. He was feeling so old that he almost forgot that there were 6 girls in his room when he woke up. They were all drooling idiots who couldn't do anything but complain about having to leave him and tell him about all the great things that happened last night that he didn't want to hear about. As he tried to clean himself up, he was surprised by how much his old house affected him. It made him think about his life before he left Konoha. Now, he felt like he had gone back in time. He heard Naruto say, "Sasuke." Sasuke let out a sigh of relief when Naruto found him. He turned around and looked at him, then fell back and covered his eyes. He had always thought Naruto's outfit as a child was silly, but now the orange was shining brighter than the sun. "Naruto, what are you wearing?" "My outfit." "Nothing. This is perfectly normal clothing. Anyway, let's hurry up. Kakashi-sensei is waiting for us," Naruto said as he ran away. If Sasuke could have looked at the person he had come to help, he would have been shocked. He took one step, and was immediately praised by everyone who walked by. Who liked his look, his hair, his clothes, the fact that he was a Uchiha, and his ninjutsu skills. The last one made him stop and think. How did they know how good he was at what he did? They were regular people. But before he could answer the question, Kakashi walked up to him. Sasuke didn't know what to think when he saw a younger version of his teacher. What did he do here? Most of the time, he didn't show up until 3 hours after the time he said he would. Kakashi gave him a scroll to hold. "Do this while you're waiting." Sasuke was confused as he looked at the scroll. Then he turned to look at Kakashi. What's going on with Naruto and Sakura? What about them? With that shockingly cold question, the copy ninja vanished in a tornado of leaves, which immediately buried Sasuke up to the neck. Divided by. Sasuke moved away from the body of Naruto. The Mizukage asked, "What's wrong?" Sasuke said, "I'm not going back in there by myself." Everyone looked at Sasuke. "What? That's the main point of what went on." "Wait," Kiba said. "You got up and there were girls in your bed." A red-haired stone ninja asked, "Is that really what you're concentrating on?" "It's important to me." Ino hit Yuzuka on the back of the head. "Anyway," Sasuke said, I'm pretty sure Naruto wasn't in that Genjutsu. It's more like a second Genjutsu was made for me. So what? Asked Tsunade. It puts you in a world where you can have everything you want. Sasuke moved his head no. Not exactly. I mean, he paused. Being 12 again did feel easier, but being constantly praised by strangers, waking up with half a dozen random girls in my bed, and Naruto's shiny clothes have never been things I've wanted. Virgin. Sasuke didn't know who had said that, but the sound of something hard hitting flesh told him that the person who had done it was getting in trouble. Maybe he needs more lessons from Kakashi, he said, but he didn't seem to care about Naruto or Sakura at all. Shikamaru said, that's really strange. Again, who was the ninja who did this to him? Gaara said, it was a bad Kyusa ninja from the Sasaku clan. I sent some messengers to find someone from their village to try to figure out how to wake him up. After he knocked Naruto out, the real attacker ran away. Sasuke blinked, so we just wait. Tsunade looked at him. Are you going to go back in to look for him? Sasuke looked back at Naruto. He probably wasn't in a very dangerous world, but he couldn't leave him there. He didn't even have to look to know it was Sakura's hand that grabbed his. Sakura said, I'll come with you. Sasuke smiled as he looked at her. Okay, but you might not like what you see, I said. Sakura smiled. Yeah, but that wouldn't stop Naruto, and it's not going to stop us either. Before he looked back at Naruto, Sasuke smiled at her. What was he thinking about? Divided by. When Naruto turned around, he could see that he was still being chased. More and more people joined Sasuke's army of angry fangirls until a small army of regular people came together to chase him down. Naruto thought about what would happen if he fought back as the whole town of Konoha chased him. They were all able to keep up with him despite the fact that he was much faster and could do more tricks. I mean, they were all fake, right? And they were the first to attack. He had the right to fight back. A spear flew by his head and landed in front of him on the road. Naruto sped up even more. He didn't care about how real the pain they could cause. As the Hokage building came into view in the distance, he said, yes, perfect. She would help, right? Before he could think about it anymore, another spear flew by his head. Naruto knew he had to get out of sight when a cut on his cheek started to leak blood. In fact, the crowd was getting closer to him. He was lucky that he saw a familiar place. He yelled, Shadow Clone Jutsu, and made 100 copies of himself run in different directions. He's trying to get away, roared Sakura's voice with the power of a jubai. Don't let him. Naruto snuck into Ikaraku's ramen while the crowd chased after his many clones that were running away. He looked back at the door to see if anyone was coming. When it became clear that no one would chase him, he almost fell down. Naruto, are you okay? Naruto's heart felt better when Chuchai spoke in a kind way. I'm glad to see you, he said with a smile as he turned to the man. Then he stopped moving. Chuchai was floating over the counter of the restaurant. Behind him, several bowls of black ramen were floating in a way that looked a lot like the truth-seeking orbs. His uniform was changed to look like a strange mix of chef's clothes and ninja clothes. On the front, there were 9 tamo. He had horns sticking out of his hat, and Naruto could only describe what he was holding as 2 huge chopsticks and a big spoon. Naruto got so confused that he choked on it. Chuchai asked, what's wrong? As he opened his eyes and saw 2 rin sharing it. Naruto had to get down on his knees because of how hard it was for him to be looked at. The floor cracked under him. This ability, this power that is too much. It was impossible. Madara hadn't been like this. Compared to this, Kaguya had been very gentle. As a simple genin, he couldn't handle this. He thought, wait, I was still a genin. Chuchai said, sorry, and then he shut his eyes. By accident, I used 0.000000000000000000000000001% of my power, even though memories of his clones being beaten to death flooded his mind. Naruto decided he was probably safer with the angry mob and was about to turn around when I.M. ran up to the counter looking normal. She asked, Naruto-kun, are you here for some ramen? Naruto gave her a look. He looked at her father again, then back at her. What's wrong, Naruto-kun? Naruto told her, nothing. She said with a smirk, so, you want your usual? Naruto blinked. He turned around and looked at her floating dad. I don't mean to be rude, but what is he doing? Before she looked back at Naruto, I.M. gave her father a look that was so off-putting it was rude. Sage of a dozen bowls. I don't know. Chuchai was happy. There's this interesting tournament going on, and one of my other selves is thinking about going. Tending crops is fine, but that shotgun hasn't been used much since I decided not to kill that stupid radish. I am groaned. He'll be like that for a few hours, so we'll have the whole place to ourselves. Naruto wasn't sure about what she said because of the way she said it, but he couldn't think about it because he was too busy with the sage of a dozen bowls. Aim ran around the corner and grabbed his hand as she said, "Come on, I've prepared your favorite Naruto-sama." As she pulled him further into the store, Naruto looked at her for a moment. "Sama?" he asked. And didn't she sound a lot like the woman who had talked instead of Kurama? Before he could think about this anymore, a memory of a clone being burned at the stake popped into his head. The clone, however, disappeared before it could feel anything, so he decided that whatever it was, it couldn't be as bad as the rest of Konoha. Divided by, Sakura gave the 3 fake people who were pretending to be her teammates a mean look when she tried to get Sasuke's attention, and he went on a 10-minute tirade about how she'd never amount to anything. It was pretty clear that she wasn't talking to the real Sasuke. She was sure that he would have killed her if she was still the same little Genin she was at this time. As it was, she was just surprised by how long and in depth he had talked about how she had no value at all. She counted 86 different times where the word useless was used. Naruto had just waited for Sasuke to finish talking before saying, "You're wrong," which was a pretty lame answer. Sakura was ready to give them both a hard time when Kakashi showed up and gave them a new job, moving a bunch of boxes, and that had put her in the situation she was in now. As the boys did the heavy lifting, Sakura stood off to the side and wondered how and why she'd put on the cheerleader outfit Kakashi had given her before they got to the warehouse. She was glad that Sasuke's story wasn't a short one, given what she knew about him. "Sakura, you're not doing anything," Sasuke said. Sakura looked at him. He had written an essay about how weak she was, and now he wanted her to do something. "Kakashi-sensei gave me this outfit, so," Naruto said, "but you're not cheering." Sakura took a look at the fake. She looked down at the pom-poms she was holding. She gave him a glare. "Hey, why don't I help you lift that?" Everyone stopped moving the boxes and turned to look at her. Kakashi put the book he was reading in one of the pockets of his jacket. Naruto put the 3 boxes he had been holding down on the ground with care. Sasuke blinked at her. Then they all fell down laughing hysterically. Sakura opened her mouth to say something, but then she noticed that the laughter was a lot louder than it should have been. She got up and walked to the door. She had no idea what was going on when she heard a whole village laughing. Did everyone laugh when she said she would help? How? Why? Sakura realized that her chest was beginning to hurt. She was shocked to realize that they were getting to her. They'll see. Before she started lifting, she walked up to the nearest box and grabbed it. The box didn't move at all. "No, no, no, no," she kept saying as she struggled to pick up the small cardboard box that her teammates had moved with ease. She stopped and looked at the box for a minute before she kicked it. As she hopped on one foot in pain, the laughter got louder. She threw it open and asked, "What's in this?" "Used bubble wrap." Sakura looked at layers and layers of bubble warp. "Okay," Kakashi said, struggling to get up. "Sakura, we need to get back to work. Let's cheer again." Sakura looked at the plastic wrap. Had she always been this weak? She wasn't as strong as some of her friends, that's for sure. She was the weakest part of their team, but was it really that bad? Naruto and Sasuke were not like other genin, they were monsters. Why was this taking place? Sasuke yelled at Sakura, "Cheer up." Sakura looked up at him and watched as he picked up one box, walked across the warehouse, and put it down on the other side. She closed her eyes, shook her head, and then looked again. She wasn't able to see it before because she was too angry, but once she looked, it was clear. They were just moving the boxes from one end of the warehouse to the other. She tried not to laugh. She didn't have to show these idiots anything. The Genjutsu made her think she was weak, but it was clear that she was the only one with brains. She stood up and smiled as she picked up her dropped pom-poms. She said, "Go, Sasuke," and waved the pom-poms around. She put one hand on her waist and pointed to the fake. "You move that big box, because they wouldn't be able to get to the other side of this warehouse without you doing the work." Sasuke nodded, straight up. Sakura cheered, "Yeah, you're such a badass." So she wasn't a poet, but she was sure to have fun while she was stuck on this mission. Divided by, Sasuke didn't think it could get any worse. He had been wrong. Naruto wouldn't stop talking, and he said believe it at the beginning and end of every sentence. Sakura had thrown herself over him like a blanket and was kissing the side of his face, and Kakashi could not be found anywhere. He thought about doing something about it, but it was nice to be back with his team, no matter how annoying the constructs had been. So he just got into the lotus position, let the two of them fade into the background, and started working to get the genjutsu to work again. If he tried hard enough, he might be able to find Sakura's real chakra. His body was just as weak as it was when he was in Konoha, but he still knew enough genjutsu to get in there in the first place. He made up his mind, when Kakashi comes, I'll pull us out. Sasuke shook his head as he pulled himself out of Naruto's mind. He hoped that he would have made some progress, after being away for so long. It was hard to get back into the real world. He looked at Sakura. The kunoichi stumbled a bit, but he didn't fall or let go of his hand. You okay? Sakura looked at him. Since he had left, he hadn't seen her that often, but it was clear that something had changed. I'm fine. I just need a minute. How bad was it? Sakura stopped for a moment, then shook her head. She looked him in the eye and said, it wasn't very good. Was I really worthless when we were kids? Sasuke said something. Don't sugarcoat it just because you feel bad about everything you've done. Sasuke blinked. He thought about what to say. Well, you were an average genin with above-average genjutsu skills, incredible technical knowledge, and prodigious chakra control. I don't think you always made the best use of your abilities, but Naruto and I would not have survived the forest of death without you. He looked her in the eyes. Anyone who says you're not good for anything is wrong. Sakura smiled and looked to the side while her cheeks turned red. Are you gonna kiss? Sasuke remembered that there were other ninja around and looked at them all. Sasuke stumbled, not sure what to say. No. He still had no social skills. Smooth, Kakashi said. But you still have hands together. So, the genjutsu made you feel like you were useless. Sasuke tried to change the subject as quickly as possible. Even so, he didn't let go of her. The way she held it showed that she was still not okay. Sakura nodded before she started to talk about what she had done. Akumo Nin looked at Sasuke when she was done. Wow, you really were a jerk. Still, Sakura's story moved Sasuke. How many times did he use the word useless? I know. I would have smashed his face, and if the genjutsu hadn't made me so weak I couldn't carry a box of bubble wrap. What about you? Everyone worshipped the ground I walked on. Naruto wouldn't stop talking, and I think I know what happened. Everyone was interested in this. They asked, what? I might have found Sakura. It took me hours of concentration, but I think I found her chakra in mine. And does that help? Thora asked. It helped me map some paths in Naruto's head. It's hard to explain, but I think I might have figured something out, at least until Kyusa responds. If the map is good enough, it might lead me to Naruto. So, we go back? Sakura asked. Sasuke gave her a hard look. What? Will you be okay? I mean, if it makes you feel bad about yourself. I feel good about myself, she said, and she let go of his hand. No, Naruto isn't. Who knows what's going on in there with him? Wait, Ino said. If you're making a map of Naruto's mind, wouldn't it help to have more minds involved in the process? Sasuke looked at the Yamanaka. You're right, but it took me a while to find Sakura. If I were to add more people, it would be best to add them one at a time. So, who's coming with us first? I think Ino should, Shikamaru said. You know her better than anyone else in her clan, and she knows how to get into other people's minds. Ino looked at the girl on her team. She had no reason to think that would happen. Well, Sasuke asked. As she walked up to the last Uchiha, Ino said, of course I'm not going to say no. Sasuke nodded. He took Sakura's hand and hoped he didn't look too eager. Looked at the stump where his hand had been. He said, I forgot about that. Ino's eyebrow went up. So, should I touch your head, or? A mechanical arm shot out of Sasuke's empty sleeve when he used chakra very quickly. People all looked at it. I never planned to make a spare arm. But things are bad right now, Sasuke said. He showed Ino the new body part. She looked at it with disgust before grabbing it with trepidation. Sasuke turned around and looked at Naruto, then used his Rinnegan Genjutsu. Divided by. Ino walked around Konoha in a calm way, looking for big differences. As Sasuke and Sakura had said, she was back to being a genin, which felt strange after getting used to her more grown-up teenage body. She said out loud, okay. Whatever the change is, it must have something to do with Naruto, so all I have to do is find him, she said. Again, where did Naruto live? 20 minutes later, Ino raised her hand to Naruto's front door and knocked. She took a moment to think about what might happen. She and Sakura had both passed the Chunin exams at this age. Was she about to be tested on her strength like Sakura? Or would Naruto be a chatterbox like in Sasuke's Genjutsu? Tenten stumbled out when the door opened before she could knock. Both girls looked at the other one. Ino looked at the person who used weapons. She looked and smelled like she had just run a marathon. Her clothes were wet from crying, and it was clear that she was having trouble standing. But her smile was the creepiest thing about her. "Are you okay?" Tenten looked off into the distance. "Yeah, have fun," she said, and then she got up and walked away. Before she looked at the door to Naruto's apartment, Ino looked at her. She walked in with a gulp. Naruto was sitting in a recliner and wearing an orange fursuit with a tiger pattern on the inside. He also wore a wide-brimmed hat and didn't have a shirt on. He looked her in the eyes. "Hello, Ino." Ino tried to hide her nose. "It smells even worse inside, and you're dressed like a pimp." Naruto gave a roll of the eyes. "Come on, Ino. I thought we agreed you'd be less of a BTCH. I didn't agree to that, and don't call me a whore." "Yes, you did." "No, I didn't." Naruto said. "Yes, you did. As long as I kept rewarding you, you did." "Reward me." Naruto jumped out of the chair and pulled down his pants before Ino could stop him. Ino stared with a mix of interest and fear. Naruto asked, "Do you like what you see?" Then it became bigger. Then it fell to the ground. "Come here so I can beat you up." When Ino stopped running, she ran into her own room and hid under her bed. "It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. It looks like a weapon. Someone will die from that." How? She was lost in her own thoughts when she heard her door open and close. "Ino." As she came out from under the bed, Ino asked, "Hinata, are you okay?" Hinata asked. Ino stood up. "Yeah, I saw something scary just now." "Yes, Naruto told me," I said. Ino froze. Hinata liked Naruto a lot. She knew, of course. "I don't know why you're scared now, since you weren't scared last week when." Ino screamed, "I don't want to hear it," and put her hands over her ears. "Okay," Hinata said. "But really, I don't know why you're scared. It's not that bad. I don't want to do that with Naruto." Hinata didn't know what to say when she asked, "Really?" "Yes," said Ino, who was shocked by how her shy friend was acting. Then she had another thought. "We're also 13. "Yes," Hinata said. I don't." Ino was at a loss for words. "Don't worry, once you get started you'll like it." "What do you not get about I don't want to start?" "Oh, that's how we all start, but then we get used to it, and that's that." Ino realized that a long time in this genjutsu could hurt her mind in a way that couldn't be fixed. "Where is Naruto right now?" Hinata said it like she was talking about the weather. "He was sad, so Tsunade-sama, Sakura, Sasuke, and Anko went to comfort him." Ino just looked at her. "Two of them are over 20 years old." "Yup. Hold on, who is Sasuke?" Hinata gave her eyes a roll. "Now I know you're messing with me. It's not like you don't know who Sasuke Uchiha is." Has broken down. Data was too hard to understand. Performing diagnoses, analyzing what was said. Sasuke Uchiha, S Uchiha, S Uchiha, Naruto and S Uchiha, together. That's how. "Ino, you have a cut." Ino wiped her nose to get rid of the blood. No, I don't want to see," she said, panicking over the possibility that she was being watched. Hinata tilted her head back. "What? Nothing." Hinata gave a shrug. "Oh well, I'll just have to hurry up and get there before they wear Naruto out." As the daughter of the Hyuga clan left to be with Pimp Naruto, Ino fell over and landed on her bed. "Get me out of here, Sasuke," she said as she started to reach out with her mind using clan techniques. She thought for a short time about where this genjutsu came from. Was Naruto a lesbian or gay? Or did she just think of him as one in her mind? Was she the one who did it? Divided by, "Let me go, you pervert," Naruto shouted as he jumped out of IM's bedroom window and down to the street. He then took off running. When he finally stopped, he saw that he was back at the training ground he had just been chased away from. Sasuke and Sakura were standing around without moving. Before he looked around, Naruto drew himself back. The angry crowd had left. He asked, "Where did everyone go?" "What are you talking about? Retard, dope, son of a whore, dumbass." Naruto looked at Sasuke. "What? Did I stutter?" "No, you didn't, Sasuke-kun," Sakura said, and the power of her words made the ground shake. The sky split open, and the animals ran away in fear. Naruto had to dig a kunai into the ground so he wouldn't be thrown back. Sasuke, who was standing next to her, just nodded as if a bomb hadn't just gone off next to his ear. At that moment, Kakashi walked into the training ground without much thought. "Hey kids." Naruto looked at the grown-up. Hadn't anyone noticed when half of the people in Konoha got together to kill a 12-year-old? What were they waiting for? "So anyway," Kakashi said, "I think we should do some sparring." Naruto sighed. "Just a little sparring. Finally, something easy. I can totally take Sasuke. Wait until I..." He threw himself to the side to avoid the fireball Sasuke sent at him. Sasuke. What they foo, they hadn't even made the seal of confrontation yet. I know you have a jutsu. Sasuke screamed. I'll beat it out of you, for I am a Uchiha, the greatest member of the greatest clan on the face of the earth. All other nations shall bow before me. I shall use my awesome natural talent power to wipe the floor with your worthless retarded ass to prove my inherent superiority to all living things great and small in this pathetic world. The cages will bow before my almighty Sharingan. The Akatsuki are nothing but insignificant rats I will destroy. I will soon kill my brother and then show the world the terror of the Uchiha as I use the greatest Genjutsu, the Sharingan, to kill everyone who stands in my way. All shall fear me in despair. It is my birthright as the new god of shinobi. Inherent superiority, Naruto asked, realizing that this would never end if he let it go on. By beating my worthless ass. If I'm worthless, what's even the point? The real Sasuke would never want to fight me if he didn't think I was strong. I am the real Sasuke, and I want to fight you because I know you are weak. Sasuke yelled as he charged up the Chidori and began running at Naruto. Naruto blinked. Sasuke wasn't running fast. He was so slow. He'd been faster fresh out of the academy, yet he knew the Chidori. Naruto flipped out of the way of the attack. What happened to all your training? Naruto asked. Training? Sasuke asked. I don't need to train. I am a Uchiha. I am the best by default. Naruto felt something in his mind screech to a halt. You don't train? Of course not. It would cut into my brooding time. And then what will the fangirls have to do with their lives if not fawn over me? Naruto felt insulted. Then how did you learn the Chidori? I copied it. You copied lightning transformation? Yeah, the same way I copied Lee's Taijutsu and speed. You saw him kick you in the face once. The Sharingan doesn't work like that. Also, you'd never be able to pull off any of Lee's jutsu while you're that weak. Sasuke's answer was another Chidori. Naruto stood his ground. As the Uchiha reached Naruto, the Jinchuriki grabbed Sasuke's forearm, raised it up so the Chidori was harmlessly aimed at the sky, and punched the prick in the face, sending him stumbling back. Kakashi was next to him in an instant. Speak to me, my precious student. Are you okay? He charged at me with the Chidori twice. Naruto exclaimed. Kakashi glared at him. I expected better from you. What? Naruto deflated. The world was stacked against him and he didn't know what to do. Now, you'll be banished by the civilian council for hurting the precious Uchiha. Please don't call him that, Naruto said. Suddenly, he felt a burst of power. He looked to the side. Sakura glared at him. Oh no. She took in a breath as a torrent of wind flew into her mouth. Kakashi picked Sasuke, who was crying like a bitch, up and jumped away. The ground burst open. The trees were uprooted. All windows in Konoha shattered. Birds fell from the sky, dead. All the animals in the fire country were silenced. The people of Suna took cover as a sandstorm blew at them from the direction of Konoha. The people of Kiri stared as the waves exploded, the already turbulent sea swelling as if in answer to an incredible beast. The people of Iwa were shaken as the mountains around them cracked. The people of Kumo stared as a great wind blew the clouds their village was named for away. The people of the other villages are not important enough to get their own sentences, except Pain, who stared at the direction the scream had come from, wondering if there was another Rinnegan wielder out in the world. And Naruto. Naruto was thrown all the way to the Hokage monument by the force of the explosion. Kurama, he screamed. Ugh, I've got you, my baby kit. The woman moaned. Naruto contemplated just taking the hit and seeing if death would wake him up. But then he felt himself get encased in the boiling red chakra that he had access to with Kurama's seal in place right before he slammed into the monument. It saved his life. Now if only it didn't feel like every bone in his body was broken, or like the chakra on him was licking him. Naruto groaned as he forced his eyes open. Where am I? Naruto, a tear-filled voice asked. Wait, Hinata. Naruto looked at the Hyuga heiress. As soon as their eyes met, she froze. Hina. Naruto was interrupted as she turned an almost bright fluorescent red. Foam burst out of her mouth. Her eyes rolled to the back of her head and she fell off her chair. Ugh, she's always like that. Naruto looked at the source of the voice, Shikamaru. Then he looked around, realizing where they were. Why am I hospitalized? Look in the mirror. He looked at the ground. He was wrapped in bandages from head to toe. Oh, then the pain started. Ugh, I feel like I just fought Sasuke again. Well, yeah, you broke his nose, Shikamaru said, unimpressed. Naruto said, more to himself, not that one. Then he looked at the Nara and said, he was so weak, and he was so full of himself. Well, it looks like the council has decided to kick you out. Naruto blinked. Before Sakura scared him into the monument, Kakashi had said something similar. What council? And what do you mean by banish? They said that you've been hiding your great power, which they saw when you beat Sasuke, the great and powerful, and when you pulled out the Kyuubi chakra, so they decided to send you away for the safety of the village. But I'm a Jin. How did you know about the Kyuubi? Duh, I'm smart. Naruto wanted to know more about what was going on. He didn't get one. Okay, he said. What are you all doing here? At that moment, Naruto thought of Hinata. Wait, is Hinata okay? She'll be fine. Shikamaru dismissed. I don't think so, I replied. She always does that, so don't mind her. Naruto tried to look over the bed, but the pain made him jerk back and fall. Naruto asked, why are you all here? Well, Shikamaru said, I'm a friend of yours. Naruto blinked. You are? Yes, we've known each other since we were in school. Do we? The door burst open. Tsunade ran over. Naruto. Oh, at last. I need an explanation. Naruto stopped. Tsunade's eyes were wet. She was crying so hard that snot was coming out of her nose and running down her cheeks. It's awful. The council has decided to kick you out because you are a threat to the other people. Sasuke tried to kill me, so I punched him. Tsunade wept harder. But since you're the Hokage, why can't you tell them what to do? Yes, but I'm too weak to go against the council in this way. Naruto's anger was growing. What the hell is a council? He was ignored by Tsunade. You have to leave Konoha by sundown, or a death sentence will be issued for you. What? She turned around and ran away after saying, I'm sorry I let you down. Hinata yelled, I'll go with you. Naruto gave her a look. She fell asleep again. Shikamaru said, those damned people have always hated you. Naruto looked at him with an angry face, divided by. As Sakura kicked the training dummy, she grumbled. She was too weak, too slow, and too easy to hurt. She was too weak to ever get back to the level of power she had as a genin. Her teammates weren't helping her, either. Naruto said, isn't that cute? She's working out. Sasuke gave a snort. Not like it'll help. Sakura thought. Ignore them, as she remembered how the real Sasuke had judged her skills. She gathered her chakra into her fist and hit the dummy with it. When it hit, she let it go. The piece of wood broke. She laughed. Huh. She turned around and looked at her team. Wow, Naruto said. Look, Sasuke, she's stronger now. Sakura smiled. Naruto then went to his own training dummy and punched it. It broke up into pieces. Sakura's jaw dropped. Naruto said with a smile, I bet she'll be strong enough to do that when she's an adult. Sakura grit her teeth. She looked at Sasuke. Trash bag. Why are you looking at me? She went back to the dummy and hit it because she was mad. There was another crack. Divided by. Ino opened her door. He gave her a smile. Ino shut the door hard. I just want to talk. Naruto said. No, come on, Ino. I know you've been missing me. There is nothing you know, Naruto. Just let me in. No, Naruto gave a groan. You know what? That's fine, but you don't know what you're missing. Ino listened to the sound of him walking away. Finally, hello, mother of Ino. What? Asked Ino, throwing open the door. Divided by. Sasuke pulled himself and the two kunoichi out of Naruto's mind. Stay away from my mother, you fucking pervert. Ino screamed. Then she stopped moving when she realized everyone was looking at her. Oh, I'm back, Sasuke told her. I found your mind, as he looked at her and tried to figure out what she'd seen. Oh, great, said Ino. Sasuke asked, what was going on in there? I don't want to say. Sakura asked, was it really that bad? Yes, Ino looked at Sasuke. You said you found me, didn't you? Sasuke nodded. At some points, it was a lot easier. I could focus on fear and anger at the last minute. Ino blinked. Extreme feelings can be traced, she said. No, that's not all. I found a third mind by using the two of you as a guide. Sakura blinked. Kurama. He looked at the other ninja. He must be in his own Genjutsu. That's scary. Whoever did this put both Naruto and Kurama in Genjutsu, and I can't break it. I'm the only person on the planet who could do that. Has Kyuza sent us a message? The Raikage said, the shinobi we sent should be on their way back now. Sasuke nodded. He turned around and looked at the ninjas. Anyone want to go back in? You'll probably end up as a genin again. Sasuke saw Ino stop moving. What's the matter? Did you see something? Sakura asked. She said, I am a genin in that Genjutsu. Yes, Sasuke said slowly. Where was she going with this? I'd like to go in again. Sasuke blinked. Are you sure? Because of what she said about her mother. He thought that her experience must have been just as bad as Sakura's, but Ino nodded vigorously. Yes, okay, he said. Who's next to join us? Slowly, a hand went up. Hinata, Sasuke asked. The girl from Hyuga nodded. She was adamant. I really want to help Naruto. Sasuke looked at the girl. The only thing he remembered about her was that she was shy and quiet. Now she was mad at him and looking at him with fiery eyes. Okay, he said, but get ready. You never know what you'll find in there. Divided by. Ino quietly got out of her room. She turned her head. Nobody has seen Naruto. She got up and left. She yelled, Dad. Inoichi Yamanaka called out from outside the house. Ino? Without stopping to think, Ino started to run. She stopped in the backyard and saw her dad taking care of his beautiful flower garden. He asked, Ino. Ino stared at the face she thought she'd never see again. Everything was wiped out when the Jubai attacked the headquarters. Not even a body was left. Now, her father was standing in all his glory, wearing a dirty gardening outfit and holding a watering can. She ran up to him and hugged him without stopping to think. Forget Pimp Naruto. She thought this genjutsu was fine. Divided by. Hinata didn't know how she felt about this genjutsu. On the one hand, her father was more open than she thought he would be to her wanting to date Naruto. The other, Hayashi said, this means that when Hinata and the Uzumaki get married, they will have the best ninja children. Hinata couldn't hear him, but she could read what he said by looking at his lips. She turned on the Byakugan as soon as she woke up in her room at age 12, only to find that the Hyuga compound was built on top of a huge cave. Her father was talking to a group of robed Hyuga at a strange meeting that seemed like a cult, a group with a very strange goal. Now that Naruto has saved Hinata's honor from her awful cousin, he is aware of her. Neji nodded sagely. Now, we need to get them to talk to each other more. I've planned a few happy accidents that should speed up the process. We'll be successful. And Naruhina will happen. So says Keikaku. According to Keikaku, the Hyugas said over and over again. Hinata decided to do what they wanted, but only because Sasuke wanted her to feel strong emotions, which Naruto was sure to do. Yes, only that was the reason. It had nothing to do with her clan helping her meet up with the guy she liked. Not a thing. Divided by. Sasuke leaned back in his chair and focused on the thoughts he could follow. Ino was full of happiness, which made him even more suspicious, and Sakura's voice was a low rumble of irritation. Just have to find Hinata. He took a ninja from his bowl of ramen and ate it. Hey, Sasuke. Sasuke stopped. That made me think of Naruto. It sounded so different, though. He changed his mind. As soon as he saw his rival, the world seemed to stop moving. Naruto was wearing a black leather jacket with small spikes sticking out of the shoulders. But instead of regular sleeves, they had gauntlets that seemed to be part of the fabric. He had what looked like plate armor with a black skull painted on it under the jacket. It also had a number of chains behind it. His lower body wasn't much better. He was wearing leather pants that looked like they were held together by 40 belts and combat boots with steel toes. Naruto had what looked like a lot of hair gel in his hair and was wearing sunglasses. He also had 3 swords, a Fuma Shuriken, and a big scroll on his back. When Naruto's super badass entrance to fight pain was described to him, the scroll looked like it did then. At that moment, Sasuke felt a lot of different things. He felt most of all ashamed that he had let this horrible thing sneak up on him. Naruto, who was moving around in his ridiculous outfit, took off his glasses and looked away in a serious way. I've decided to stop wearing my mask. From now on, everyone will see the real Naruto Uzumaki, he said, staring angrily at Sasuke. And I'll start by showing everyone how much I've been holding back. I'll prove once and for all that I'm stronger than you, and I'll make you admit it. Now, Sasuke was a very proud person, and most of the time, he wouldn't let such a clear challenge go without a response. But the Genjutsu was starting to make him nervous, and he was tired of getting into fights with his friends. Yep, Naruto-sama, he said. He went back to eating his ramen, hoping that would be the end of it. Of course it wasn't, because Sasuke had to jump out of his chair to avoid getting his head chopped off by. Was it Kubikirabacho? Naruto showed Sasuke the blade. I'm done with this sad competition. It's beneath me. Sasuke blinked. But you started our fight, he said. He dodged again to avoid a blow from above. I am Naruto Uzumaki, Prince of Darkness and heir to the throne of Uzashigakure and the Kitsune clan. I will not be denied any longer. Fuck my life, Sasuke said. Naruto swung the sword at Sasuke's head, but Sasuke dodged it. As the blade flew just inches from Sasuke's face, he knew it was the same one he'd had for almost 3 years. He jumped back and landed on the back wall of the building. Uzure Tonkashi, where in the hell did you get Kusanagi? Is that real? Naruto's eyes rolled so smoothly that Sasuke almost thought they wouldn't stop and would roll out of his head. Your weak mind would never be able to understand how I got this blade, he said, pointing both of the swords he was holding at Sasuke. It's true, Sasuke didn't say anything because he was too busy trying to figure out how Naruto was using both Suijutsu's Kubikirabacho and his Kusanagi at the same time. Expertly, he ran up the building to avoid being cut in half, then reached into his bag and pulled out a kunai that was tied to a piece of string. With a throw and a pull, he was across the street while Naruto was only halfway up the building. Sasuke ran while concentrating on his Rinnegan powers. If he stopped now, he would have to start over. What the hell happened to Hinata? He could get out of this nightmare faster if he could find her and Kurama quickly. Divided by. Hinata took a sip of her drink and then looked over at Naruto, who looked confused. He looked around and said, "So, Neji said you wanted to talk and have lunch." On the picnic blanket they were sitting on, 2 bowls of freshly made ramen appeared. Naruto said, "Awesome," as he got ready to eat. He stopped then. "So, how is your family?" Hinata looked to the side without much thought. The Hyuga clan was all over the park, trying to hide but doing a terrible job of it. They were all wearing camouflage clothes that didn't work, had fake bushes tied to their helmets, and held 2 small branches to their faces. Hinata looked back at Naruto. "What are they doing? They seem not quite right." Hinata told him they made the ramen. "My favorite kind of off," Naruto said, and then quickly changed his mind. Hinata just smiled as she took her own bowl of ramen from the table. She hoped Sasuke would pull her out slowly. Divided by. As he ducked under a fruit cart and jumped over a fence, Sasuke said, "This sure is taking its sweet time." Behind him, both things were cut in half. Sasuke started frantically making hand signs before lowering his hand to get ready for his signature jutsu. There was nothing. Sasuke was so surprised that he almost didn't move out of the way of a spray of senbon that was almost done with what Haku had started. When he looked behind him, he saw that Naruto had, in fact, made a dozen shadow clones to help him in his search. Sasuke put his Sharingan to use. This turned out to be the right decision, as he had to dance around a rain of senbon while keeping moving forward and keeping his eyes on the attacks coming at him. More than a few of them were able to go through his body. Sasuke was so busy that he almost didn't notice the kunoichi when he walked up to him. Sasuke took off quickly and flew over Sakura. Then, in a panic, he saw that the ground Sakura was standing on was covered with needles. He threw 2 of his stringed-up kunai at her, catching her and pulling her to him at the same time. "Sasuke-kun," she gasped. Sasuke couldn't answer her because he was too busy watching Naruto jump into the air with both swords raised, ready to kill both of his teammates. Sasuke briefly wondered if this was his punishment for all the bad things he'd done to his friends. Then he threw Sakura out of harm's way and made the second most familiar set of hand signs in his arsenal. Fire style, Fireball Jutsu. Naruto blocked the attack with Kubikirabacho, which also kept him from seeing Sasuke. The last Uchiha hit the ground and bounced back at Naruto. Naruto moved the sword just in time to avoid getting hit in the face by Sasuke's fist. With a puff of smoke, the clone was gone. Sasuke blinked before he looked around. 12 Narutos were flying around him with their blades raised to cut him up. Sasuke put his eyes shut. He took a breath in and then let it out. He remembered the real Naruto, staring up at him as he died on what would become the Great Naruto Bridge. On the other side of him in the Valley of the End, in the 4th Great Ninja War, he was right next to him. He was lying next to him, bleeding out in what would probably be called the Crater of the End, lying under a Genjutsu sleep, suffering some unknown fate, probably something worse than what Sasuke was going through. Sasuke looked around. He had the body of a Genin, but he made up for it with his skills and experience. He dodged an attack from above by turning and slamming one foot into the face of the clone and the other into the flat of his Kusanagi. Before the clone could go away, Sasuke jumped off his sword and hit a second Naruto in the side of the head with a flying knee. He threw 3 shuriken, all of which were caught by the Naruto clones they were meant for. However, those 3 shuriken only served as a distraction while 3 other shuriken, hidden in the shadows of the first 3, went unnoticed and got rid of the clones. With a show of acrobatics that made his muscles scream, he moved his legs out of the way of another attack before using the Fireball Jutsu to get rid of the clone and one behind it. He hardly had time to think about what he had done before he got a kick in the side. He didn't care about the pain, so he used his arm to grab the foot that was hurting him and pulled. This raised him higher in the air and put him in a position to punch the clone in the face, getting rid of it. When he looked up, 6 blades were pointed at his body. Sasuke stared, and his Sharingan told him everything that was going on. He learned 2 things about himself as a sword master. First, that there was an opening, and second, that he couldn't get away from the attack without getting hurt. Sasuke turned around in the air by swinging his legs and moving his arms so that he was spinning upside down. He slid through the opening he had seen and avoided most of the blades. Keyword, most. He hissed when one of the Naruto clones cut into his back, but he forced himself to ignore his body's protests at the thought of ever moving again. He punched 2 of the Naruto clones in the face while flipping himself to kick the third in the head and use him as a stepping stone, both sending the clone flying away and sending himself even higher. Only 3 Narutos were left, and all of them were staring at him, all under him. The Phoenix Flower Jutsu is a fire style. The clones started blocking the fireballs that were coming at them and jumping out of the way of the ones that weren't going to hit them, as if they weren't wearing what should have been armor. Sasuke really thought about his chakra, especially on the few fireballs he had carefully aimed so that Naruto would just dodge them. He made the fireballs turn with just a thought. All 3 Narutos laughed, then turned around and did their own jutsu with their own hand signs. Wind style, big step forward. All the fire went out when a blast of wind came out of the Naruto's mouths. Not so much the many shuriken that were hidden inside. All 3 Narutos groaned as Sasuke's shuriken hit them in the arms and face, killing all but one of them. This is when Sasuke's body decided to show him what happens when you push yourself too far. He stopped moving because most of his muscles felt like they were on fire. He and Naruto both went down to the ground. Sasuke moaned and blinked his eyes to get the tears out. He grunted and forced himself to stand up. Naruto looked at him with a look of disgust. Sasuke stared back blankly. Naruto asked, "So, are you still making fun of me?" Sasuke looked in the direction that Sakura had been thrown. She was fine, of course, because she stayed on the building's side and watched the whole thing with shocked eyes. Still, she couldn't do anything. He turned around and looked at Naruto, who was getting mad. Well, Sasuke almost laughed. Naruto was getting so angry that Sasuke thought of Deidara, the crazy bomber who decided it was better to blow himself up than to just tell Sasuke where Itachi was. Naruto raised both of his swords with ease, which made Sasuke wonder why Naruto's giant cleaver wasn't making him lighter. He closed his eyes. He was aware of that stand. If Naruto did it right, both of his arms would be pointing backward. Sasuke would fall apart. "How about it, Uchiha?" asked Naruto. "Can I surrender?" Sasuke asked. "After all the years you put me down, insulted me, and said you were a better ninja than me." Never. Sasuke wondered if this Naruto had just forgotten what he had done in their rivalry, or if he was just happy to blame everything bad on Sasuke and call it a day. "All you've done is hurt me and not care about anyone else, so you deserve to die." That was way too close to home for Sasuke. Sasuke's arms hung limp at his sides. In his mind, he saw the real Naruto's bloody chest with an arm pushed into it. The Genjutsu Naruto ran at him. Sasuke did nothing but watch. He might have been right. "My dream is for all shinobi, including you, to work together." Naruto's Genjutsu made both swords swing. He just cut through the air. What? From where he was, Sasuke stared at the back of the fake Naruto and used all of his hand signs. The fake finally turned to look at Sasuke when he seemed to notice the extra weight on his arm. From where he was crouched and stuck to the bottom of Suijutsu's sword, Sasuke shot fire right into the shocked face that was looking at him. He might have yelled. Because of the noise of his flames, Sasuke couldn't hear it. He jumped and pulled Kusanagi out of Naruto's hand while trying to land on his feet. That didn't work because Sasuke's legs gave out and he fell into the street in a messy way. He thought, "I can't move." He thought it was all right. At this point in the Genjutsu, most of the things he had forced himself to do were beyond his physical abilities. He thought it was lucky he couldn't feel anything below his neck, and then he could feel the evil. With a start, he looked at what should have been the half-burned body of the fake Naruto. Instead, Naruto was covered in red chakra and had 2 tails coming out from behind him. His red eyes were filled with hatred for Sasuke. Sasuke thought about what he could do. All but one of them died in the end. Sasuke made his eyes work with a grunt of effort. He hadn't learned this jutsu in Konoha, but if he could just remember how it worked. Sasuke fell into the middle of Naruto's mind. He went back to stop Kurama. The 9-tailed fox looked down at him, but there was no sign of the cage that was supposed to hold him. Sasuke just stood there and looked at the chakra beast. He had no idea how to fight. Kurama raised a paw. At that moment, the Genjutsu fell apart, and Sasuke was thrown out of Naruto's mind. Before he realized that Naruto had changed, he blinked to clear his eyes. Now, he had three tails out and the thick chakra made it hard to see him. Naruto raised his hand, and Kurama's chakra started to move in it, making the same Rasengan that had clashed with Sasuke's Chidori Lament. Sasuke realized that he had never asked Naruto what the purple Rasengan was called. Sasuke thought, wait, he knows how to use the Rasengan, but I can't use the Chidori. His anger stopped when Naruto crouched back and got ready to launch himself. Sasuke blinked as a wave of irritation and shame hit him. He caught onto it right away and figured out that the chakra was Hinata's. Jumped the fake Naruto. Sasuke took a step back from the Genjutsu. Divided by. When Neji asked Hinata to go for a walk with him, she was hoping to spend some time with her cousin, who has since died. Going on dates with Naruto was fun. Or at least as fun as it could be with her family keeping a close eye on her, but this may have been the closest she got to talking to the real Neji. So, as she hung from a waterfall over a river with sharks in it while Neji, disguised as a shinobi from the village hidden in the Kikaku, fought Naruto, who had come to save her, she wondered if she should have just stayed with Naruto. Naruto kicked the ninja in disguise in the chin, sending him flying into the forest. This stopped her from thinking. Hinata let out a sigh of relief. Then she fell forward and found herself back in Naruto's hospital room. Sasuke, on the other hand, fell to his knees with his free hand and panted like he was going to have a panic attack. Sasuke, Sakura said, alarmed, "Are you okay?" Before getting up, Sasuke let out a breath that sounded like he had been holding it for days. He said, "That's fine." Hinata wondered if he had always been such a bad liar. Sakura said, "That's great." "Wait," said Ino. "Shikamaru should follow us in next." The Yamanaka got everyone's attention. The Nara in question asked, "Why?" Because, Sakura gave a head shake. "I think we should take a break while Ino thinks of a reason." "What?" Sasuke asked. "Don't ask me what to do. You need a break." Sasuke stared at her. "I don't have a choice," Sakura said sternly as she finished. She was talking like a doctor. No one thought the doctor voice was wrong. It was said that she had used it to stop Tsunade from drinking once. Honestly, the way Naruto explained the whole Kaguya mess was more true to life, but it was still impressive. Sasuke looked down. "Yes, ma'am." After scaring off the demigod, Sakura looked sad at her teammate who was sleeping. "I don't want to leave him in there, but he wouldn't want you to risk your mental health for him, okay?" Sasuke nodded mutely. Sakura put out her hand and helped the Uchiha stand back up. "So," Sasuke said as he looked back at the crowd. "Back to my cell, I guess." Tsunade shrugged. "The prison is a long way away. This is just a short break," he said. She looked confused at first, but then she nodded. "Don't leave the hospital," he said. Sasuke nodded. Tsunade looked at the group of ninjas. "Okay, we'll give our explorers a half-hour break to rest, and then we'll go back to the search." Sasuke looked at Sakura as everyone left the room. "What now?" Sakura looked him over from head to toe before taking a quick look at Ino and Hinata. "He needs to get a new look." Sasuke turned pale. Hinata gave it a lot of thought. Ino squealed. Sasuke looked at the other two girls and seemed like he was about to ask to go back to his cell. "I'll help out." Everyone turned to see who was talking. Sai also smiled. Sasuke gave himself a facepalm. And the other ninja all looked at the last Uchiha. Sasuke tried as hard as he could to act like nothing bad had happened. Even though they were laughing, Ino, Sakura, Hinata, and Sai all had proud looks on their faces. "So," Sasuke said, "Shikamaru's next, right? Why don't we talk about it?" asked the Nara. "No," Sasuke said. The Uchiha said that, but no one took him seriously. He was wearing a black shirt with white and red accents, and his empty sleeve was tied with a blue cloth. His black jeans only had red accents on the sides, but they looked great on him, and to top it all off, he had a black cloak that stopped just above his ankles, not to mention that he had washed, brushed, and styled his hair. The ninja who had known him as a child remembered why the former criminal had been so attractive to girls. Ino said, "I've always thought he could have been a model." She then smiled and held up a camera, saying, "And I have photos of all of his other outfits." "Destroy that," Sasuke said, holding out his hand for the camera as the beads on his wrist rattled. Ino held the machine close to her chest to protect it. "It's too much fun to tease you." "Yes," Sai said. "I wish we had more time. I would have loved to wear makeup." Sasuke thought, I was a dangerous missing nin last month. Then he turned to Naruto's unconscious body and said, let's get back to why we're here. He took the cloth off Naruto's empty sleeve and pulled it off. Do you think Naruto is doing okay? Hinata asked. Sakura said, I'm sure he's fine. It'll take more than a little jinjutsu to take him down. And no matter what, he always knows how to make the best of it. I bet he's doing pretty well, if anything. Right, Sasuke? Before he looked back at his sleeping friend, Sasuke looked at her. Divided by, someone had set fire to his apartment and everything in it. Naruto looked at what was left of it with horror. He turned away from the door and said, this is fine. This is fine, he said. What wasn't fine was the huge parade that was going on right outside his door to celebrate the demon being driven away. On top of the Hokage monument, there was a carnival with circus tents, dozens of food stands, and a Ferris wheel that looked down on the village. There was also a huge roller coaster that went around the whole village, which could only be described as a health and safety officer's worst nightmare. On top of that, the main parade was going around with floats that showed Naruto burning on a pyre, a giant fox that had been cut up, and, as if to insult him personally, spilled ramen. Almost every direction had carnival music playing, and the air smelled like cotton candy and fire. Naruto just stood there and looked at everything in shock until his ANBU guard nudged him. Move, said the man. Naruto ran to the gates and said, I'm going. He needed to get out of Konoha and clear his head. As soon as he got to the gates, he stopped. It looked like his team, the other Genin teams, their sensei, Tuchai and Iam, Konohamaru and Tsunade, and other people were there to see him off. Shikamaru walked over to him and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. I've always been your best friend, he said. From when? Naruto asked. Shikamaru didn't pay attention to him. And it's really a shame to see you go. Held to the council. Naruto didn't ask what this mysterious and famous council was all about. Tsunade said, the civilian council has always had so much power. They are regular people. Shikamaru took a step back as Naruto yelled. It's really sad to see youth leave. Lee shouted. What? Naruto asked. Lee said it again. Youth were the best of us. Naruto looked at the ninja for a while before he had an idea. Shouldn't you be in the hospital? It was true that Lee was having a hard time standing up with his crutches, and he looked like hell. I would be, Lee said in a serious tone. But then I wouldn't be here to admit that youth has always had more taijutsu potential than I have. From the way you moved during our fight, it was clear. The one where you knocked me out with one move. Lee beamed and said, right. Guy said, Lee is right. You are such a beast. Naruto was surprised to see that the green Jonin hadn't said youth. So, he said, I have a gift for you. He grabbed his jumpsuit and ripped it off, revealing a purple speedo under it. Naruto's jaw dropped. 8th Gate of Death. Open. Kai exploded with the power of the 8 gates. In an instant, he was in the air and, with a spin of his legs, he made a huge flaming yellow dragon. With a roar, it flew around Konoha, its body seeming to stretch so that it could be seen from all directions. It also set the highest part of the roller coaster on fire before coming back to where everyone was standing. Naruto just stared at the show. The dragon swooped down until its huge head was above them, then opened its mouth wide enough to swallow a house. A scroll fell out of its mouth and into Naruto's hands. Oh, Naruto yelled as he let go of the burning scroll. As quickly as it had appeared, the dragon disappeared into blue embers. Kai fell to the ground and was no longer in the 8 gates. The flames danced around him as he moved his arms like a maestro leading them in a beautiful piece of art. He was still wearing the speedo. What are you doing here? Naruto asked. Kai laughed and said, to get through the 8 gates, I used the secret method. Well? Asked Naruto, staring at the man. What's that? Kai looked around conspiratorially, before leaning in close to Naruto. I turned it off before I died, he whispered. Oh, it was that easy? Naruto asked. Yes, Kai said. I don't know why no one else had thought of it. Kai then picked up the scroll and said, and now you have this. The scroll with the secret of the 8 gates. Learn it, get good at it, and get strong. Youth, Lee shouted. Kai threw the scroll to Naruto, who took off his coat to catch it and said, thank you. Kiba and Choji both took a step forward. Well, I guess that's the end of the 4 musketeers, Kiba said. Yes, Choji said, a manly tear falling from his eye. But I will always remember how close we were when we were kids. Naruto did nothing but nod his head. Remember when I gave you some of my food when you were starving in that ditch after the angry crowd beat you up and threw you in the dumpster? Choji asked. Naruto looked at him with a blank face. Remember when we had a birthday party at your apartment? Shikamaru asked. Naruto looked at him with a blank face. Remember when we went out to get into trouble, rode our bikes around, found a dead body, beat an evil space clown, and learned what Christmas is really about just in time to sing about it in the school play? Hyuga asked. Naruto looked longingly at the gates. If he could get through them, he could get away from all this chaos. Then Tenten moved forward and opened her mouth to say something. Screen time allocation fulfilled, a woman's voice said from the sky after everyone heard an electronic buzzing sound. Tenten was lifted up into the clouds by a giant gloved hand that reached down from the sky and grabbed her by the arm. Naruto had to sit down and think about what was going on. Then came Ino. I've always liked you, Naruto, she said. He looked at her and asked, what? But my stupid, childish brain made me think I cared about Sasuke, she said, leaning forward. Take this kiss as my apology. Naruto saw her face and said, I'm good. Ino started crying and said, I deserve this because I'm a bad Sasuke-loving fool. She cried and ran away. Asuma then stepped forward and said, Naruto. Yahoo. Naruto turned to see who was talking. Hidden came out of nowhere and cut Asuma in half with a swing of his scythe. So good, Hidden yelled, and then a gloved hand came down from the sky, picked him up, and took him away. Everyone just stood there, as if nothing had just happened. Naruto was sure that he was having an aneurysm. Kakashi walked up to him and said, You're a disappointment. He then turned and left. Naruto said, Well, that was a letdown. Dope, Sasuke yelled. Naruto winced and looked at the Uchiha, who wasn't really the last one. You are a useless wretch who doesn't deserve to be crushed under my feet. You may have gotten a hit on me by lying, tricking, or using demonic power, but don't expect it to happen again. I'm not scared of you, and soon you'll be sorry you dared to live in the same world as me. My revenge will come quickly and completely. I'll do things that you won't be able to get over even in hell. This land will be washed clean by your blood and burned up. I will. Sasuke's words became less important as Tsuchai floated up to Naruto. You are a brave boy, he said, touching Naruto's chest right above his heart with one finger. Soon, you will join me in the pantheon of memes, along with Shaggy and Lord Twigo. Naruto nodded. Now I must go. He rose up into the sky. My people need me. Entrails and testicles. The sky will be torn in two. There will be blood in the oceans. The moon's womb will be used to bring the sun back to life. And when it's all over, the world will shake. Sasuke went away again as Neji stepped forward and said, Naruto. Naruto jerked back when he thought about seeing Neji's dead body. Hey, Neji. Neji gave him a scroll that wasn't on fire and said, You will need this. What's that? Naruto asked. Hair care products. What? Asked Naruto, staring at the Hyuga. In the end, he asked. Neji flipped his hair back, and it blew in the wind like a wild mane. Yes, he said, as his luscious black hair framed his face. If you want to be a great ninja, you will need hair at least half as good as mine. From where does the wind come? Naruto asked. Neji said, It just happens when fabulous hair is in the picture. Like the great log of substitution. We don't question its mysterious power, he added. Naruto sighed before he smiled at the Hyuga and said, I'll treasure it. Crying like a baby. I'll drown you in the whirlpool of my nightmares. My tentacles will twist and turn your throat as I choke you with visions of hermaphroditic succubi and violent Oedipal rape fantasy. Your cities will be mine. I will make your kids obey me. Your armies will be raped and eaten by me. Naruto Nyai, said Konohamaru as Sasuke's voice dropped again. Yes, Konohamaru. Naruto asked, Will I really become this story's Gohan when I grow up? Naruto didn't know what a Gohan was, but the name sounded strong. Yes, he asked. Nuo. Konohamaru yelled and then ran away. That was definitely not what I should have said. A goat and 3 prostitutes. Then, with the power of the 9th stage of the Ultra Divine Rin Mangekyo Rinnegan plus Ultra, I will be king. Sakura took the first step. Naruto got ready to feel pain. She tried to speak, but her throat seemed to close up because of the force and pain. Her body twisted in agony before it started to fold in on itself. Her bones creaked and snapped, and her chest seemed to deflate. Sakura fell into a black hole right in front of Naruto's eyes. Everything around the hole started to get sucked into it, making Konoha shake. Naruto, who was closest to her, was ripped off his feet and sent flying toward the event horizon. Then, as soon as it started, the black hole collapsed and spit out Sakura, who didn't seem to care that physics had just been thrown out the window. Naruto fell on her feet, and then he looked up at her. Sakura looked down on him, huffed, and then walked away. Naruto let out a sigh of relief before getting to his feet. Then they'll know I'm Sasuke Uchiha, god of shinobi gods. And they'll look at my work and feel hopeless. Hinata stepped forward and said, I'm coming with you. But she passed out again, foaming at the mouth, and Naruto caught her before she could hit the ground. He then looked around for help. The ANBU agent said, guess that's 2 people who are going to be kicked out. Good riddance to the fox lover, he added. Naruto wondered if anyone cared that he was a Jinchuriki, but then he decided that he didn't care either. Wait, Naruto thought of something. Where's Aruka? Who? Aruka Yumino, the teacher at the academy. I don't know who that is, but it sounds sad and bothersome. Naruto probably would have said something if he hadn't been so tired for the last few minutes. Shino took the first step. Naruto was confused because Sasuke wasn't yelling at him, so he looked at the Uchiha. Sasuke took a break to drink some water, but he was still giving Naruto a mean look while he did it. Shino didn't move, so Naruto looked at him. Shino, he asked. Shino didn't say anything. Naruto poked him. Shino collapsed like a puppet without strings, fell to the ground, and deflated as thousands of bugs flew out of him and started to nest in Asuma's dead body. Naruto just looked at the pile of clothes and didn't know what to do. Tsunade, Kurenai, Shizune, and I am finally came forward. Tsunade said to Naruto, you were the best sex we've ever had, and we're done here. Thanks for everything. Naruto yelled, see you, bye. He carried Hinata in a wedding carriage out of the village without looking back. He could go to Suna. Thora couldn't be that bad, right? He wasn't that dumb to believe it, but it was his only choice. Shikamaru moved his king and then gave his father a suspicious look. Shikaku Nara always had a calm look on his face when he and his son played shogi. You might think that after a day of planning and strategizing, the Nara clan head would relax by running circles around his son in a game of shogi. But he usually did this with a 12-year-old Genin, not a Chunin who had already killed an S-class ninja and fought in a war. Shikamaru smiled as his father's brow furrowed and his breathing changed. He'd made the same face the first time Shikamaru beat him in a game. Shikamaru called it as I may lose, but I won't make it easy for you face. He liked to think it was the same face he made before he died and told them his final plan. Shikamaru smiled at that before he remembered what Sasuke had told him. He needed to feel strong emotions. He shouldn't be chilling out with his dad. Shikaku finally moved his piece, and Shikamaru knew he could beat him in 5 moves. He tried to remember his dad's face as he sneaked another look at him. Who knew when this genjutsu would finally be over? Shikamaru won in the end. It didn't feel as good as the first time, but just being with his father meant everything to him. Now, if only the bad thing wasn't so bothersome. Gomnasai Musuko, Shikaku said. My Keikaku was no match for your Keikaku. He smiled. Shikamaru just nodded. Things couldn't get any worse, he thought. Deja vu. How about something else? Shikamaru started to talk to answer. Shikamaru-kun. Oheyo. It was Ino's voice. Before he looked at the girl who was walking up to them, Shikamaru almost rolled his eyes out of his head out of fear. Then he fell out of his chair in shock. Ino's hair was even blonder than usual, and she was wearing a gaudy hot pink tank top, a tiger skin jacket that hung off her shoulders, a backwards worn jeweled cap, and a ridiculously tight black skirt. But what was most shocking was that her skin was a brown, almost burnt color. It looked ridiculous on a 12-year-old. Ino took the crazy red lollipop out of her mouth and asked, Nanny, what's wrong, Shikama-kun? Shikamaru looked for help in the area. Ino-san, leave him be, Choji said. Shikamaru looked at his best friend, but he didn't think that would help him feel better. Choji was wearing a white jacket, pants, and a hat. All over his clothes were drawings of girls' faces that looked like they were in the middle of a trance. His jaw dropped. Awa, said Ino. With that dumbfounded look, Shikama-kun, you look so kawaii desu. Why ... are you wearing that? Shikamaru asked with a blink. Ino looked down, then back at him. What do you mean by nanny ever? Shikamaru shook his head and said, so what? So, you guys, why are you here? Shikama-kun, you're such a neat, Ino said, shaking her head. You should go places more often. We're here to get you out of there. Shikamaru's body told him to run, but Sasuke said that when he was upset, it was easier to find him. And where do you think we should go? He asked. To a barbecue, Choji said simply. Don't you Naruhodo, baka? Now he was interested. He said, okay, and looked at his dad. Is it okay if I? The man and the shogi board were both gone. He went where? Shikamaru asked. Choji said, he's probably overseas for a business meeting. Shikamaru looked at the boy, then back to where his father had been, and then he took a deep breath. Choji shrugged. Gomnasai, Soto nai aiku, Ino said as she spun on her heel. I wonder if Sasuke-kun will be there. He makes my heart go doki doki. I'm not sure if he'll look at my oppai or not. Sakura has no oppai, unlike me, though my oppai are very kawaii mo. Even so, it could mean that Sasuke-kun is a hentai. Could a hentai and I go out? Will he want to see what I'm wearing? I want to be thought of as more cute than weird. Anata wa sorga rai nai kanataru to amat koro guguru shimashita ka. Shikamaru smacked his forehead. This was going to be harder than he thought. Divided by. Sasuke looked at the fake Naruto. If he didn't know better, he would have said that he had even more chains on him. At least he wasn't trying to kill him anymore. Maybe. He looked around the training ground to see if there were any ways out. I beat you in every way. Yup, there were many deaths. Sure was. In every way, I'm better than you. No matter what you say, you'll never reach your life's goal again. Of course it. Hold on. What? Sasuke blinked. I beat you. And now you'll spend the rest of your life trying in vain to get back to the top. Do you think that being stronger than you is my life's goal? Sasuke asked. Naruto nodded as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. You know about my soup. Sasuke stopped speaking. In this Genjutsu, Itachi was still alive. All of a sudden, what Ino had done made more sense. How's your brother? Sasuke looked at the Genjutsu build for a long time. Sasuke looked at Kiba, who was coming toward them with the rest of the rookies and Rock Lee's team. Oh great, one clown wasn't enough. The circus is here, he muttered. Yes, in Nukuza. He said it out loud. I want to have a fight with you. Now that Naruto has put you down a notch, I want to fight you to see how good I am. Sasuke was sure he wasn't going to win. No thanks, he said. Huh, you're just afraid I'll beat you. Yes, Sasuke turned around and walked away from the stuttering dog boy, keeping a hand on Kusanagi in case he needed to avoid another surprise attack. Sasuke. When Sasuke heard Sakura's voice, he stopped. The Pinkette ran up to him, looked down shyly, and said, Thanks for saving me. Sasuke looked away because he didn't know how to deal with Sakura. It was nothing, he said. Don't worry, I'm sure you can still beat. Sasuke put her hand over her mouth. That's the problem, he thought. I can accept that I'm much weaker than I am in the real world, but I'm not supposed to. Sakura is just crazy. Oh well, who cares? He let go of Sakura and began walking away. Sasuke, where are you going? She queried. He thought he needed to find Shikamaru, he said, to meditate. Then he paused. Want to come with me? The Pinkette stopped moving and just stared at him. Then she started to shake. Sakura flew up like a bird and started doing loop-de-loops and whooping with joy. Well, that did happen, said Sasuke. Sakura fell in front of him and smiled at him. Okay, let's go, she said. Sasuke didn't try to stop the smile from appearing on his face. Divided by. Sakura looked at the boy in front of her who was gasping for air. If any of this was real, she would rush to his side to help him. The fake Sasuke, who was cut all over and bleeding out in front of her, looked at her with disgust. Well, he asked. Why are you looking at me? Sakura asked. I'm useless, don't forget. Sasuke was barely able to stay on his feet, and Sakura was worried that he would die before he asked for her help. She stopped looking at him and looked at the battlefield. The missing Iwanin who had attacked them had been brutal, and they had completely ignored her in favor of her teammates, who were all now badly hurt. She was the only one with a first aid kit, because of course she was. Naruto and Kakashi had already given up and were being cared for, so they just watched the two genin look at each other. Sakura said, All you have to do is say 3 words, and I'll take care of you. Sasuke seemed to be thinking about killing himself instead of doing what she asked. Sakura walked up to him. Well, what do you want to say? She asked. He spoke in a mumbled way. What did you say? Sakura asked. Help. I didn't really understand that. Sasuke yelled. Help me, Sakura. His Sharingans turned on, but he jerked and turned them off. Sakura looked thoughtful as she started to think about how to clean his wounds. She smiled as sweetly as she could and said, Well, since you asked so nicely, I'll take good care of you. Sasuke moved back when he was told to. That's better, Sakura said.
I will continue the story in next part, so stay tuned. Till then, we weeb offline.